And if we look at that, Afro-Caribbean religion, Santeria or whatnot, or anything occultish in nature, they try to max these deities as some sort of angels or some sort of beings that are here to help you, when that clearly isn't the case. The deeper I got into it, the worse my life got. The worse I got deeper into drugs, because in order to summon things that need to be summoned, you have to be in a level of intoxication, meaning you have to drink, you have to smoke. You have to get yourself out of your mind and out of your body in order to pursue things of the spiritual realm.
So who do we have the pleasure of, having a conversation with today?
Hey everyone, my name is Joseph Anibal de Leon, and I'm here to share my testimony.
So yeah, Joseph, you were telling me that before you came to Christ, there were some crazy things that actually went on in your life. I mean, at one point you were even dabbling in some stuff, and you ended up going into prison and all that. But before you even got to prison, tell us a little bit of what your life was like.
My life was it was pretty rough growing up. I grew up in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. Pretty much back in the 90s, it was like the Wild Wild West out there. So I had to learn at an early age how to fend for myself. Growing up, we didn't have the things that we had now. So, we were raised on food stamps. We were pretty much just surviving to make it. So a part of that being, I had to run the street. I had to do what I had to do. Joined gangs, got involved with gangs. As time grew older and I grew older, eventually moved up to leadership. Came to Maryland, got in a lot of trouble, did a few things I regret, but you know what? Can't take it back, and I just continue to move forward with it.
So tell us a little bit, you said you even did some occultic practices.
Right.
Like how did you even get into that?
Actually, since I was a child, I would, and I know this sounds pretty weird, but I'm just gonna be real, and people can take it how they want to take it. When I was younger, I would see little dots of light, right? I would just be walking, and I wouldn't understand it, and I would just be confused. And one day I was on a subway. I think I was on the N train going from 59th Street in Brooklyn to go see my aunt, and someone who practices occult philosophy had pulled me up on the subway, and they say, "Hey, I see those lights that are surrounding you." And I was like, "Okay, well, what are they?" And I think she said salamanders or something like that. I didn't really understand it, but it got me fascinated into the things of occult, to understand some of the things that I see, some of the things I hear, some of the things that just didn't make sense, and people would look at me like I was crazy.
Man, so after that encounter, what was the turning point for you? What happened? How did you get more rooted in occult practices? What were some of the things that you found yourself doing?
I found myself experimenting more with, Satanism, Wiccan beliefs, Santeria, which is real heavy on my mother's side of the family and my father's side. So, just going around seeing it, it was a part of my culture growing up. So I registered more, and the older I got, the deeper I got into it. Actually, when I started getting heavier into it, my life went completely worse. And, now as a believer, I look back and I realize that, Satan was an angel of light at one time. So he poses as angels. And if we look at that, Afro-Caribbean religion, Santeria or whatnot, or anything occultish in nature, they try to max these deities as some sort of angels or some sort of beings that are here to help you, when that clearly isn't the case. The deeper I got into it, the worse my life got. The worse I got deeper into drugs, because in order to summon things that need to be summoned, you have to be in a level of intoxication, meaning you have to drink, you have to smoke, you have to get yourself out of your mind and out of your body in order to pursue things of the spiritual realm. What I will say is that, when you go to the liquor store, what does it say? It says wine and spirits. And when they're talking about spirits, they're referring to the liquor, right? So you're literally consuming an entity, and people don't really realize that. When you get drunk, all of a sudden you have courage, right? Or you feel more free, you feel more liberal. And that's a spirit, that's an entity inside of you that's really bringing it out. And honestly, like, it's not even because of my faith in Jesus. I just prefer not to, because I understand what alcohol really is. And it's hell sent. It's hell sent.
Now, so you were in the streets, you were practicing witchcraft, you were doing occultism, and you were part of that life. At one point, did you end up going to prison? Because when you got into prison, it's like there was a completely different situation that took place.
Right.
So give us a little bit like how you end up in prison and what actually took place.
Okay, I was a part of a group, and federal authorities, were watching us for a while. They wanted to take down the heads for the state. I happened to be considered one of them, so they took us down or whatnot. And my underlying charges were 2 attempted murders and an armed robbery. All the different people, all at different times. That's what I was accused of. That's what I pled out to. And that's the time that I received. While I was in prison,
How many years were you sentenced?
I was sentenced to 144 months. That calculates to 12 years. And out of 12 years with the good time, I only had to do 10 and a half until they changed the law, and then it dropped me down 3 months. I got sent to the prison I was staying at, and I walked in and smelt the air, and I knew I just wasn't supposed to be there, man. It was like the wild, wild west out there. No code, no nothing, every man for himself. So I never went to prison before. That was actually my first felony, and I got that hit. So I had to learn how to adapt. I had to learn how to move in the shadows without being seen and trying to stay out so I can get home to my family. So what I did was I learned, I read, I studied philosophy, I studied psychology, I picked up books on strategic intelligence. I did a lot of self-help work within myself. And through my experiences in prison, of course it's in prison, you're gonna get into fights, it's gonna happen. Especially if you're in a prison, you're gonna get into it, you can't avoid it. So that's where Islam came into play. I got sent to segregation for, I forgot what it was. Most likely it was probably fighting, if you just want me to be honest, right? So I'm in segregation, and I'm not taking no bunkies. Like, the cops come to my cell, be like, "Hey, De Leon, you're gonna take this dude?" No, I ain't taking nobody. And I would bark and, flood my cell up or whatever, and they wouldn't put no one in with me because they didn't want no problems. So they tried one more time, and they say, "Hey, look, it's an older gentleman. He's half American, half Pakistani. No one wants to take him in, not even the Muslims. So do you mind doing this for us?" I to be real with you, I said, "Well, what am I going to get out of it? Because I'm not taking no one in." They said, he got money, he'll feed me. Okay. I took him in, and little did I know who he really was. I thought he was just a regular, Muslim dude no one really liked, until I got to know who he really was. He comes in the cell, and since he's an older man, I give him the bottom bunk out of respect for the elders, So I gave him the bottom bunk, I jumped on the top. And so we just start talking. I'm trying to feel him out because I want to make sure he's not in there for a sex crime, because if he is, I got to go at him, right? At that time. So we're talking. He says, "No, well, I'm here because I'm a terrorist." I say, "Okay, well, what did you do?" Then he began to describe, some attacks that he did overseas where hundreds of people had died. So I was a little nervous, but I wasn't intimidated of him. I actually grew to like him at that time. So we start talking, and he was like, "Well, what do you believe?" I was like, "Look, man, I believe in my Orishas. I believe in Chango. I believe in Elegua. I believe in Ochosi. I believe in these gods and these deities." And I had a shrine of Elegua, which is a concrete statue with shells. I had one in my cell. And then he goes, and he says, "What can that stone do for you?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Can that stone get you out of jail right now? If that stone is God, tell that stone to get you out of jail right now." And I don't know, it was weird. It like clicked. And I was like, I began to become curious. So I say, okay, well, what do you believe? And then he introduces to me Sunni Islam, right? He begins to teach me how to read, write, and recite Arabic. I learned how to translate Quran from Arabic to English. And at one point in time, I was actually an imam for one of the tiers I was at in New Jersey. He sort of viewed me as a son because he has 4 children and they're overseas, so he didn't really get to see them. So it was more like a father and son relationship. Like we would laugh and we would talk about things. But then I started realizing that this man is a master manipulator. And I'll explain, because I would be in the cell and he would teach me about jihad, right? And there's 3 types of jihad. There's jihad of the heart, jihad of the mouth, and jihad of the fight. So the strongest one, according to Islamic tradition, is the jihad of the heart, because you have to hate, what Allah hates and love what Allah loves. So, that's the theology behind it. So he begins to make these little comments. I'm learning about jihad, I'm reading chapters about jihad. We would sit down and talk, and he would start mentioning places, turn his head like this, and say, man, someone should attack that place. Snapped. I said, okay, you think you got a send-off. All right, cool. We start talking, we debate. I start giving him my point of view on Islamic perspectives, and things just starting to add up. Right? Like, I'm not downing the Islamic faith. This is just my experience with the man that I was dealing with.
What you're saying is some very deep stuff, some very interesting things.
Yeah.
And I know at one point you even said that this person that you were in the cell with, tell us a little bit about like how big their name was, because for the people who are watching this, they may not really know like how big his impact really was.
BBC has a documentary about him. He is considered the Bin Laden of a foreign country. And so, that's as much as I really want to go into that.
Right. And so, you're still in prison, you're still with him, you guys are having these conversations, these debates, and you're learning and you're seeing that he is a manipulative guy. At what point did you come to your realization that, okay, this might not be good for me? And I need to escape this, or I need to get out of this?
Yeah, see, in prison, that's not really that easy, because even though, Islam is a faith, in prison it runs as a gang. It runs just like a gang, and it just is what it is. So, I did leave, but it came with a cost. Every day I had to walk around with a razor in my mouth. I was in constant battle as far as with my mind, waking up every morning feeling like, yo, today I might die. In a constant state of panic for 10 years, like literally just going through it. And, I didn't do anything. It was all God. It was all Jesus. Even though I didn't know who he was protecting me, man. And I believe that wholeheartedly. That it was God himself that kept me alive.
So, just to transition now, you just mentioned Jesus Christ, right?
Yeah.
And you also said that, we know that you dealt with, witchcraft and
right.
occultism. Then you got introduced to the Islamic faith. And when did Jesus come in? Did you have any, conversations about Jesus? When was it that you started asking more questions about this Jesus person?
Okay, and it's funny you say that, because my sister Valerie, for 10 years, literally every phone call, God bless her, man, every phone call, she would say, you coming to church? No. You coming to church? No. You coming to church? I don't believe in your man God. No. But she was persistent, and she had faith that she really wanted to save my soul, and I'll always be grateful to her for that. Her persistency caused me from a no to a maybe, and then from a maybe to a yes. It was Valerie's consistency in, throwing it in my ear, planting that seed.
So, coming from somebody who has been in the age of witchcraft, what's the difference between being a Christian and being in those things that you used to do?
Yeah, actually, I have had supernatural experiences when I was in prison. Earlier, we had spoke about one, and I'll bring that up as well. But there's been a few experiences. One, I've had a dream where I was fighting. I was fighting this figure. I knew it was demonic. I was fighting it. I had a sword, and I killed it, but I was deeply wounded. And I was sitting in front of someone, and they were in a cloth, and they were sitting in front of me with a purple towel. My sword was broken in three. And they were sitting, and I said, my sword is broken. And they gave it to me back, and they said, your sword will be restored when you're released. I woke up, but I did have a sense of peace, but not like the one that we had talked about prior to recording this. The reason why I stayed at KNI was because of when I was in prison. I had a dream. I was in a really bad situation. You know, the tension between me and the Muslims, it was really bad. And it was at the point where when they opened that door at 5:30, me or one other person was gonna have to die. And I had to come to that conclusion. That was so hard because, it was just hard. And, I found myself picking my mattress up, throwing my locker on the wall, screaming, cursing at God, saying things that now that I know better, I would never say to God. And I was angry from my soul because I felt like I was never going to come home. And that's a bad feeling, to the point where I passed out. I passed out right there on the floor. My cell's a mess. I passed out, and I go to sleep because I passed out, and I see myself in a dream, right? And I'm surrounded by these lights. It's like a fog, but it was lights. I can't describe it well. It was, and I'll never forget it, right? And from that light, a hand comes out and touches me square in my chest. I snap, I wake up. And that moment, I had never felt that sense of peace in my life. Never. Not only did I have that sense of peace, when they opened up that door at 5:30, God already handled my enemies. They wind up going to segregation because they got caught with liquor.
Wow. So now you're seeing everything is coming together full
Right.
circle. You see that God is beginning to move. Now, did you have questions after having these experiences? Were you what was going through your head in terms of some of the questions that you had when you experienced these things?
That dream, I didn't know how to take it. Be raw and real with you, I didn't know how to take it. I was confused, but I was at peace. So I really didn't care. If you want me to be honest with you, I didn't care. I felt for the first time in all my life, I felt a peace that surpasses anything I've ever felt in my life. Intense. I can't describe it. And the reason why I came to KNI, because of Sister Valerie, so remember I had just finished telling you that I was still struggling with the ideology between Christianity and Islam. Apostle walks by me, and I get a taste of that feeling that I had when I had passed out and I had that dream. So I didn't understand it, but I knew God was here. It's weird, right? Like, I didn't really understand what I was doing. I didn't even know if I really believed it. But I knew God was here. And I just decided to give it a shot. And I believe he gave a sermon shortly after saying, even if you don't believe, just keep coming. And I just kept coming. I kept coming. I kept reading. I kept studying. When things got hard, I kept getting up, I kept claiming the victory over myself. When everyone around me was against me, I knew my God was with me. My God is mighty and powerful, and he wears a crown of thorns. He is my protector, and he is my savior. And it's through him that all is won. Hell can't hold me, bro. Hell has no dominion over me. Everything that I've done, was just a process. And it was bringing me to this, and I believe that. Do I act like it all the time? No, I'm not perfect. But do I believe? Yeah. And can't nobody take that from me. People have a misconception of Christianity. They believe that from one day to the next, you have to be sinless, you have to be stainless, you have to be perfect. But, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the call. So come broken. You do drugs, man, come to church. You get high, come to church. This is what church is for. Trust the process. Like, I believe the first time I learned about trusting the process was through Minister Andy. He had given a sermon and he had said, trust the process. So I began to do research. And I realized in the book of Genesis, and this is maybe just a personal revelation, but God does everything in order. And that's what I got. In the book of Genesis, when God talks about creating the heavens and the earth, God says be and it is. So I asked myself a question, why? He could say be and everything's formed. Why take those days to create one thing at a time? One, because he just wants you to be in awe of him. He just wants you to love on him. And two, he wants you to know that even him in his might does things in the process. So if you feel like you're unworthy of going to church and you're unworthy of believing in God, well, I got good news for you, man. The blood of Jesus has saved us all. You come as you are and let God do the rest.
One question. This is for anybody in the area of gangs, right?
Right.
Anybody in that lifestyle.
Right.
I just want you to address them, like a big brother. So
The gangs, man, they feed you a false unity, a false love, and a false hope. They feed you this ideology of a brotherhood and a unity. When in all fact, there is no honor amongst thieves. Period. The same dude you call a brother will turn on you. It's just the way it is. It's just the way it goes. Why be loyal to man and man can do nothing for you? Why not be loyal to God and receive everything he has for you? Why not love on him so he can love on you?